for a session presented by Expedia Group Media Solutions. Please welcome the Vice President of Business Development at Expedia Group Media Solutions, Jennifer Andre.
Great. Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. As mentioned, I'm Jennifer Andre, and I head up our business development team at Expedia Group Media Solutions. Hopefully, you're all familiar with Expedia Group. Media Solutions is really essentially the digital advertising arm of Expedia. And we have this great position of being able to position our advertising partners to our travelers who are coming to our sites globally. So really excited to be here today to talk about the mindsets and motivations around what we're seeing in terms of what our travelers are doing across our platform around sustainability, which of course is the topic that we're all here to talk about today. So just real quickly, Expedia Group is so focused on the traveler. We are putting together a lot of relentless innovations around how to create the best possible outcomes for our travel shoppers, as well as our partners, because we know when travelers win, we all win as an industry. And so given that travelers are at the center of everything that we do, we invest a lot of time and treasure to better understand their behaviors, their motivations, their influences. And one of the ways that we do this really well is by looking at all of the millions of actions that travelers take across our platforms every day. And of course, this gives us a lot of really beefy trends around using our first-party data around what travelers are actually doing. But in addition to that, we do invest a lot in third-party research to ask our travelers, what's going on in their hearts and minds in terms of their motivations. So we have this kind of holistic view in terms of traveler behaviors, in terms of the actions that they're taking on our sites, but also what they're telling us today. And, as we know, over the last couple of years, traveler motivations and behaviors have changed quite substantially. So a very important topic, and what we're all here to talk about today, of course, is sustainability. And this is something that is very close to Expedia Group's heart. We invest a lot in sustainable travel. We really, truly feel that we as an industry have this amazing opportunity and responsibility to come back in a sustainable way. And we wanted to understand if travelers are thinking that as well. So we conducted some research with a company called Wakefield, where we surveyed 11,000 traveling adults across 11 global key markets. And I'm not going to share all of the research that we uncovered, but I will share a high-level overview and a link at the end of this presentation so that you can download the full study. So one of the first things that we wanted to understand is just how are travelers now thinking about sustainable travel? I mean, the obvious is, of course, sustainability. It's all about lessening environmental impacts, which, of course, the majority of the travelers that we surveyed agreed that that was the case. But I was really pleasantly surprised to see that travelers today are looking at sustainability beyond just environmental impacts, because it's about socio and economic impacts as well. So travelers that we surveyed said that, yeah, they think about sustainability in terms of supporting local economies, local cultures and communities. And what I love to see, more than 50% are also seeing sustainability around visiting lesser known destinations. We know we had an over-tourism problem before the pandemic, and we as an industry and now our traveling public, they want to kind of solve that, and they're ready to travel the road less traveled. Even better news is that the overwhelming majority of travelers that we surveyed, 90% said they are looking for sustainable options when traveling, and half said that they would be willing to pay more for sustainable transportation, activities, and lodging options. So we wanted to understand, okay, that's great, they're willing to pay more, but what exactly are travelers willing to pay more for to travel sustainably? So if you want to go to the next slide, this shows just the different areas that are important to travelers that they're willing to pay more for. And of course, food comes at the top of the list. It comes at the top of my list in terms of what I'm willing to pay more for, regardless of sustainability when I'm traveling. But, the farm to table movement is growing. Travelers want sustainable food. They're willing to pay more for it. They also want amazing experiences. They want them to be authentic and sustainable. Travelers are willing to spend more for transportation and lodging providers that are going to, really drive down environmental impacts. And also, not as important, but travelers are willing to spend a bit more potentially on sustainable souvenirs, or potentially to a travel agency or provider who is offering up sustainable options for their trip. So that was exciting to see. And in addition to travelers being more willing to spend more money to make their trip sustainable, they're also willing to make some key sacrifices to travel sustainably. And they see this in areas such as, okay, we can give up some convenience when traveling. So maybe that means walking versus taking a car. We'll give up some comforts. Maybe we take public transportation instead of a taxi. Travelers are willing to give up time to travel to the destination, maybe the convenience of lodging where it is, transportation time to the nearby destination. And then also many travelers are willing to give up their creature comforts at their hotel or lodging. And maybe that's not having their room cleaned every day, or other things that a lot of accommodation providers are doing to drive sustainability. So some great news there. We also are seeing a real increase in this intent. So this is kind of a busy slide here. There's a lot going on, but on the left-hand side, you see the types of sustainable choices that travelers have made in the past, while the right-hand side is showing us what they're willing to do in the future. So you can see here on the right side, the numbers on the right-hand side all increase. In the areas where we saw kind of the top increases were around transportation and lodging. We saw a 4 to 5% jump respectively in terms of travelers who are wanting more environmentally friendly transportation options, as well as lodging options that would lessen environmental impact. And we also saw a big increase in terms of travelers who want and are going to be loyal to providers who declare commitment to sustainable practices. So there's this increase in loyalty, and that's a real opportunity for us as an industry to latch on to that. What we've also seen in our research, as well as other research that we've looked at, is that there is a real gap between travelers' intent and desire to travel sustainably and their willingness to pay more for it, and the knowledge of how to go about doing it. It's pretty overwhelming. Travel planning is overwhelming in the first place, but having to be conscientious about it is even harder. So these are some of the areas that travelers want us as an industry to show up in their trip planning process. And one is, pretty simple: recommendations for locally owned businesses and restaurants, transportation and lodging options that lower environmental impact. How can they engage in local cultures and communities? How can they engage with destinations that support indigenous cultures and heritages? Information on how can I walk or can I bike, or do I need to take transportation or a car? Eco-friendly activity recommendations, of course, again, recommendations and inspiration around destinations that are not overvisited, and even simple things like, how do I pack sustainably? Is it packing lighter? Are there other things that I can do? And also volunteering with or supporting local organizations at a destination. So the next slide, we'll talk about a little bit about, you got to be careful, because consumers will see right through something that is just lip service. So be authentic in your commitment to sustainability. We actually found in the survey that 7 in 10 consumers have actually avoided a destination or a transportation option due to them being skeptical that there was really a commitment to sustainable practices. So something very key there. And also just wanted to talk to you about how, you as a marketer, if you want to go to the next slide, can actually turn some of these insights, knowing that travelers want to travel sustainably, they want to be able to figure it out. How do you communicate that in your messaging? So we ran a campaign with Iberostar, one of our partners, that I think was a pretty special campaign, and loved what they were doing, and just wanted to give you an example of how they promoted their sustainability message. So Iberostar Hotels and Resorts, for those of you may know that they have a very strong investment and interest in the health of their oceans and local communities where their hotels reside. They know that if they aren't sustainable and if they don't invest in this, then they simply don't have a business. So they joined and signed UNESCO Sustainable Tourism Pledge. Expedia Group is also part of that pledge. And in conjunction with that, they ran a campaign with us that highlighted their Wave of Change initiative. And so this is really all about a campaign that showcased not only their beautiful properties, but their commitment to protecting and restoring the Mesoamerican reef and improving the health of the ecosystem surrounding their properties. So the great news is this was one of the most successful campaigns that we've run with Iberostar. We've done many campaigns. This was the first one that was actually highlighting their sustainability message. So not only was that effective and resonated with travelers, but it drove a lot of bookings. In fact, it had a 47-to-1 return on ad spend. So Really excited to see what comes with this partnership, what we can do more with Iberostar, but also with many of our other partners who are really committed to sustainability. So that's the end of kind of some key highlights from our study. As I said, there's a lot more to it. You can download the full study here at this link, but just wanted to give you a few key takeaways before you head off into some of the more content that we have here today at Skift. One is clarity. There's so much confusion and it's a little overwhelming for travelers. They can say that they want to travel sustainably, but they really need some help in figuring out how to go about doing it. So I think, being clear, visual formats showing clear impact is really helpful. Be authentic in your message. Consumers want to know that travel brands are committed to sustainability and not just checking off a box. So back up your messaging with proof points and data. And then lastly, travelers are willing to spend more, but they need to understand what the value proposition is for that. Are they making an impact? So illustrating the value and the positive impact of travelers making those more conscientious choices is also really, really important. So lastly, just again, leaving you here with this link. And also we have a QR code where you can download this full study, but also we invest in a lot of other research. Our Traveler Trends report that's released quarterly that gives a lot more holistic view of what's going on in the travel environment right now. So again, thank you for listening today. I know there's a lot of great content coming up and appreciate your time.